Resuming debate, will you please do débat? The honourable member for Mississauga-Streetsville.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to rise in the House today to address Bill C-38, the 2012 Budget Implementation Act. This is a very important bill for all Canadians, as it is a real plan for jobs, growth, and prosperity for the near and long term. You know, Mr. Speaker, we could take the easy road. We could sit back and say everything's okay and just keep ragging the puck. We could continue to brag about Canada being a world leader in job growth, financial stability, and strong presence in the world. We could, too, kick the can down the road and say looming issues are someone else's problem. We could, Mr. Speaker, but we are not. Budgets are about choices. Just like families in my riding that make choices about how to spend their money, how to save and invest for the future, how to care for themselves and others, so too must government. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I would argue that government must lead by example, and through Budget 2012, we are doing just that. But let's remember the record. Through responsible management, our government has helped the Canadian economy create over 700,000 net new jobs since July of 2009, most of which are full-time positions. Canada's economy has expanded for 9 of the last 10 quarters. Our unemployment rate is well below that of the United States. The World Economic Forum ranked Canada's banking system as the soundest in the world for the 4th consecutive year. Canada continues to have a solid AAA credit rating. And so, Mr. Speaker, building on this success, Economic Action Plan 2012 provides $1.1 billion over 5 years to support research and development and $500 million for venture capital. We know that prudent investments and partnerships with the private sector will continue to create good jobs for Canadians in the future. The budget also improves support for advanced research through granting councils, Genome Canada, the Canadian Institute for Advanced Research, and the Canadian Foundation for Innovation. Mr. Speaker, Mississauga-Streetsville is home to many research and development companies in life sciences, pharmaceutical, high technology, and niche manufacturing that will benefit from these programs. Mr. Speaker, Canada is a very rich country in terms of its resources. Whether it be oil, natural gas, forestry, or mining, Canada has a unique natural advantage over most other countries in the world. That is why this budget bill focuses on responsible resource development by ensuring that major resource projects are not bogged down by duplicative regulations and that one project receives only one thorough review. The city of Mississauga is one of the most multicultural cities in the world. We have residents from hundreds of countries of origin who call Mississauga their home, and we are happy to have them. What is even more exciting is that many of these people work in companies that do business around the world and rely on strong trade relationships and do import and export services worldwide. That is why I am so pleased that our government has the most ambitious trade expansion plan in Canadian history. Mr. Speaker, we know that free, fair, and open trade is good for Canadian business. We know that Canadians can compete with the best in the world and we can win. We know that signing free trade agreements with countries around the globe gives Canadians fair and better access to international markets. As well, Mr. Speaker, this bill reduces red tape that often frustrates business and acts as a disincentive to invest. It will reduce the tax compliance burden for small businesses and make a number of significant administrative improvements at the Canada Revenue Agency. I am also pleased to report that Bill C-38 extends the hiring credit for small business for another year, providing up to $1,000 for 1 year to encourage the hiring of new employees. This budget also provides $50 million to the youth employment strategy and $6 million to expand the successful Third Quarter project to help employers find experienced workers over 50 who want to keep using their skills in the workforce. And there is $150 million for investing in small public infrastructure to support repairs and improvements to existing community facilities. This builds upon the very successful infrastructure stimulus program that brought together provinces, territories, and municipalities in the most cooperative program in Canadian history. Mr. Speaker, like every Canadian family, the federal government too must relook at how it spends hard-earned taxpayer money and constantly ensure both value for money and spending on the most important priorities. This budget focuses on eliminating waste in the internal operations of government and making government leaner and more efficient, totaling $5.2 billion in ongoing savings. This represents just 2% of total program spending in 2016-17. And with this and other initiatives, I'm pleased to report that we will remain on track to balance the budget over the medium term as we promised. To continue to help families, we are improving the Registered Disability Savings Plan, increasing the traveler's exemption, continuing support for participation, and enhancing the Victims Fund. No government in recent memory has done more to support Canadian seniors than this one. I was pleased in the first budget on which I was able to vote as a Member of Parliament that we brought in the largest one-time increase in the Guaranteed Income Supplement in over 25 years. We have significantly increased funding to the New Horizons program, and I'm delighted to report that the Hindu Heritage Seniors Group in my riding has just received one of these grants. Further, our government continues to provide support to the Old Age Security Program to existing recipients and those near retirement at current levels with no reductions or changes whatsoever. However, we have a responsibility to ensure that the OAS system is protected for future generations and not simply pass the buck to some government down the road. That is why we are moving forward with a prudent, responsible, and proactive change to the OAS by raising the age of entitlement from 65 to 67 by 2029. You know, Mr. Speaker, I just marked my first year of being elected to this place. It has been an exhilarating experience and an honor of a lifetime. I knew that part of my responsibility as a Member of Parliament was to do my very best to make this a better country for everyone. But I also knew that tough and maybe unpopular decisions would have to be made to make this happen. As one Member of Parliament in this place, it would be completely irresponsible for me to sit here and pretend that the OAS will be sustainable for my generation. I can't even imagine the MP that will replace me one day in the future and have to deal with this issue a decade or so from now if we don't act today. Why on earth would I saddle a future government, a future Parliament, or a future MP from Mississauga-Streetsville with this issue in the future when I know we can act responsibly now? The number of Canadians over 65 will increase from 4.7 million today to 9.3 million in 2030. The cost of OAS will rise from $36 billion to $108 billion. Meanwhile, the number of taxpayers that pay for OAS will go from 4 today to 20 in 20 years. With stats like this, how can you possibly close your eyes? And so, Mr. Speaker, even though this decision may not be popular, it is simply the right thing to do. Mr. Speaker, at the beginning of my remarks today, I said we could take the easy road. We could sit back and soak it all in. We could say we're better than most, and rest on our laurels. Well, that's not leadership for the future. That's not helping the next generation. We must move ahead, Mr. Speaker. I encourage all members to support this excellent budget. Thank you very much.
Questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. The honourable member for Halifax West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I listened to the speech from my honourable colleague from Mississauga Streetsville with interest, and I wonder if he's aware of what's been said about this enormous 425-page budget bill by people like conservative commentator Andrew Coyne, who talks about the length of it, the fact that it amends some 60 different acts, repeals half a dozen, and adds 3 more, including a completely rewritten Canadian Environmental Assessment Act. But he says it ranges far beyond the traditional budget concerns of taxing and spending, making changes in policy across a number of fields, from immigration to telecommunications to land codes on native reserves. So this is not remotely a budget bill, despite its name, he says, and he goes on, and it utterly eviscerates the committee process, until now regarded as one of the last useful roles left to MPs. How can one committee, in this case Finance, properly examine all of these diverse measures with all of the many areas of expertise they require, especially in the time allotted to them? Unquote. I wonder if my honourable colleague would like to answer Mr. Coyne's question.
The honourable member for Mississauga Streetsville.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the question. Mr. Coyne, like all journalists, is certainly welcome to his opinion. I read him thoroughly, and there are days I agree with him and days I don't. But, you know, what I talked about in my speech, if the member was listening, was about timely leadership in difficult times. And that's why we've brought forward a budget that is comprehensive, that does do a lot of things, no doubt. And we're going to have the longest debate on this budget bill that we've seen in 20 years. There's lots of time for members of Parliament to have input on a wide variety of issues that are covered under this budget bill. But this bill is about moving Canada forward in a responsible way in the near, medium, and long term, and I think the member should get on board and support the initiatives.
Questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. The honourable member for Mississauga South.
And I'd like to thank the member from Mississauga Streetsville for that wonderful speech. It was just outstanding about the budget this morning. I'd like to ask the member from Mississauga Streetsville, whom I know does just a fantastic job of representing his constituents in a neighbouring riding to mine. I would like to ask him about the seniors that he's speaking to in his riding and what they're saying about OAS, and particularly the sustainability of the program for future generations.
The honourable member from Mississauga Streetsville.
Well, thank you very much, and I want to thank my very good friend from Mississauga South for that question. During our 2-week break week, Mr. Speaker, I actually held a half-day seniors forum, and we talked about a whole variety of issues, and I was pleased to do that for my constituents, to update them on things that were going on. You know, it's interesting when you sit down and you talk to seniors today about the proposed changes that start 11 years from now, and you explain the numbers and you explain the demographic change and you go over it. It's amazing how they get it. They understand. They want the OAS system to be there for their children and their grandchildren to be able to collect just like they're collecting today. So I found, generally speaking, Mr. Speaker, in talking to constituents, they understand the challenge that we have with respect to the long-term viability of the old age security system, and that they generally support the direction in which we are trying to go.
Questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. L'honorable député de Laurentides-Lebel.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. J'écoutais le discours de mon collègue de Mississauga-Streetsville et puis j'arrive pas aux mêmes conclusions, malheureusement. Il y a certains faits qu'on ne peut pas nier, comme le Canada est dans une position relativement enviable comparé à d'autres pays, mais ce n'est pas à cause du gouvernement, c'est malgré le gouvernement. Parce que moi, je me souviens d'une campagne électorale il y a quelques années où juste avant la crise qu'on a traversée, le premier ministre accusait ceux qui voyaient venir une crise de défaitisme puis d'ennemis du Canada. Et puis aujourd'hui, on voit que ça continue. C'est bien beau de vanter la solidité de notre système bancaire, mais notre système bancaire est solide parce qu'il est bien réglementé comparativement aux autres. Et puis, à long terme, si on continue dans cette voie-là, on s'en va vers le chaos. Je me demande ce qu'en pense mon collègue. Merci.
The honourable member for Mississauga-Streetsville.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup pour la question. Mr. Speaker, actions speak louder than words. And if you look at the actions of this Prime Minister, if you look at the actions of this Minister of Finance during the worst worldwide economic recession in my lifetime, and you look at the results that Canada has, when you compare us to the world, we are the envy of the world in how Canada reacted to that crisis, to the work that our Minister of Finance continues to do. There is no question that we have lots to be thankful for in Canada because of that leadership, but we have lots more to do, and that's why Bill C-38 needs to get passed by this House, and we need to get on with the job.
Resuming debate.